Welcome in for the Ball with the Beast podcast. Another great week presented by our great friends at Wyatt Insurance Services. Paul, Tennessee, big win last week. It was not pretty. Hubbard, you know we were there, but Tennessee gets it done 20-13 over Texas A&M.
It was enough. It was good enough. And in this conference, that's absolutely what counts. I mean, I don't know if I'm using this term correctly, and Hubbard, maybe you can correct me here, but that felt like a program win in terms of you're not supposed to, but you played ugly. Your quarterback didn't play. Well, your whole passing game didn't play well. It wasn't just Joe Milton, but your whole passing game didn't play well. But Jalen Wright, the offensive line, helped you do enough to win. You overcame the penalties, which I think is a big issue moving forward. But you did enough to win. And at the end of the day, that's all that counts in this league. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what your stats were or what the box score says, is you won against a team that I know you are what your record says. That's a really talented Texas A&M team. So I think that's a really good win for this program.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about learning to find a way,
Yeah.
and you got to figure out how to win games. Now, can you do that every week in this league? No. I mean, everybody knows that. But on a day when you're not at your best, how do you figure out a way to win the football game? And they figured out a way on special teams. They figured out a way with their defense. The crowd helped them, and they won one, which I won't call it a program-defining win, but I think it was a step in the evolution of the program.
That's right.
Because you're not going to win every game 45-40, right? You're not going to put 40 points up every night on the board. So could you win one that was kind of ugly? I mean, think about this, Paul. It's Josh Heupel's first win when he's ever scored less than 30 points in a football game. First time ever.
Wow, even at UCF?
Yeah, first time ever as a head coach he's won a game scored less than 30 points.
Hey, that's a big milestone. In this league, you have to be able to pull out one or two of those a year that are ugly and just something's off that day because the other team's just as talented. I mean, I look back to, the days when I was around it a little bit more, and these were the games they lost. And that's what made it so frustrating was it was neck and neck talent-wise, it felt like, but you just couldn't get over the hump. And then that's what it felt like as this game is. It was not just a typical, like you said, Brent, everything was clicking and they made enough plays and won the game. This was you got out of there alive, but that's okay. You got to get some of those every year. You got to get one or two of those every year, and that's okay.
Well, to put it in golf terms, they got it around and played pretty well when they didn't, find the fairway very much. I mean, it was a struggle bus on offense, especially in the passing game. And, Tennessee, able to find a way through that offensive line, through scheme, through Jalen Wright being just a man-possessed. Jabari Small adds a nice piece or two. And then who can forget D. Williams' punt return, right? I mean, the general would be very happy, winning, was it Maxim 6, Hubbard? Press the kicking game. I mean,
downing the punt too, man. Getting down there and downing the punt.
Yep. Jackson Ross was fantastic on that. And, of course, D. Williams stops it at the 6-inch line. And then, of course, Kamal had – I thought Hubbs brought one of the best points. The Kamal Haddon play on third down, he brought this up in the postgame pod. The Kamal Haddon play on third down where he knocked it away and kept them – they weren't going to get a first down, but they were going to gain 6 or 7 yards there and get out from the shadow, right, of the goal line and give the punter a normal depth. Instead, it was forced to kick that line drive. Next thing you know, threes in the end zone. Tennessee had the lead for the first time in the game, and the whole place come to life.
Yeah. Now, that whole sequence of events, that flipped everything. That totally flipped everything. Austin, you're right. You felt Neyland come alive. The crowd came alive. Even with a slow offensive day, it gave people something to cheer about. And I think, AP, you said you teased a little bit. Maybe we'll see D. Williams get the ball in his hands. I mean, how do you not just try and throw a couple screens to the guy? I mean, I listened to some of it on the radio, and Jason Swain's call of throwing the 12th man at A&M under the bus is classic. If you, Hubbard, I know you heard it in person, but AP, if you've not heard that, it was awesome. I mean, he just threw that 12th man under the bus and went reverse on it. I mean, because he just juked that kid out of his cleats. It was awesome.
Yeah, and last thing before we move on to talk around the league, Hubbard, we talked about this on our podcast earlier on Thursday. Tennessee has moved the ball slower at times on offense this fall. With them moving it slower and not being so pressed on the tempo, does that give them a spot to throw a D Williams in? Just because they're not just going boom, 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 boom. It feels like they're a little, check with me type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, here's the other thing. I mean, there are plays they run where one side of the line of scrimmage, the receiver never even comes off the ball, right? He just stands there when they're going fast. I mean, I don't think D Williams can play 20 plays in this offense.
Yeah.
But listen, if you're going to sub and you're going to get into certain things, then I think you can potentially put him out there for a play or two. I mean, the thing, because of this run game, Paul, you're not just relying on speed and tempo for your offensive success, which to Austin's point may give you the ability to sub a little bit more than you used to. Now they still want to play with tempo, but I think there's times and place for that. We'll just see. I mean, I don't know. They put him on the field in Baton Rouge for his first ever touch, so maybe they will put him on the field in Tuscaloosa on offense for the first time. I don't know, but he sure is dynamic with the ball in his hands.
All right, let's get around the league. It is not quite the same as Hugh Freeze, Paul's old buddy, making his return to Oxford, but it is Auburn hosting Ole Miss, and so to me, this is kind of a trap game a little bit for Ole Miss. Auburn's going to get one of these games. They still got talent. They've been close a couple times. They were close with Georgia. I'm not actually to predict, but is this one of those games where you think that this is going to be really tight?
I do. I think I agree with you, AP, that somewhere Auburn's going to pop up and win one. Is it going to be this week? I mean, you look at who they've played. They've played A&M now. They've played LSU, and now they kind of not. After Ole Miss, it goes down to you play Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and so I'm wondering a little bit: are we 1 week premature on them kind of starting to pile up a couple wins because they just don't have any consistency on offense? Peyton Thorne, the Michigan State quarterback, he's been fine, but he hasn't won them a football game. They've tried to mix in the Ashford kid, who was a quarterback last year, and have had mediocre success with that. They don't have big play receivers. That's where, again, we saw what happened to them against LSU. LSU just outscored them, right? And I wonder, I don't think Ole Miss's offense obviously is as explosive as LSU's, but I think that's going to be the struggle for Auburn. Can they contain Ole Miss? Now it's at home. You're going to have a great crowd, so maybe
they're striping out, Paul. They're striping out.
Striping out. Oh, the big stuff. Hey, it worked checker kneeling last week. It can work.
Remember this. Auburn at night is different than Auburn in the day.
That's true.
It's not LSU difference. Don't get me wrong, but it's different. Auburn at night is a different, more hostile venue than Auburn. I mean, they're not a coach interested in playing a night game in Auburn on the road. So, advantage Auburn with that crowd because they are different at night than they are in home games. More outside of LSU, probably more than anybody else in the league is. Yeah. It's very different.
And I'll say too, and I know, everybody's got their own take on Hugh, but he pops up and wins games he shouldn't win. I mean, you look at his career. That's what at Liberty, he won games he shouldn't have won. At Ole Miss, he beat Alabama twice. He won games he shouldn't have won. Is this one of those examples? And on this flip side of that, Ole Miss under under Lane Kiffin, they've lost games they probably shouldn't have lost at times too. He can coach himself out of a win because he tries to do too cute. I think he's doing less and less of that. He's learning to win ugly, which I think is a big deal. But I do think, is this one of those times where that sneaks up and bites him when he tries to do something and tries to do some razzle dazzle, make a play, and it backfires? So that's always in the back of my mind with a game like this too. Is just, man, Hugh Freeze coach teams, they pop up and win a game they shouldn't, and Lane Kiffin can lose a game they shouldn't as well.
The one thing I look at this game, I think it comes back down to quarterback play. And in that case, you really like Ole Miss. Jackson Dart's playing about as well as anybody in the league minus Jaden Daniels. I mean, he is really playing well. Obviously, the best running back in this game belongs to Ole Miss. But again, there's just something about this Auburn team. They just keep hanging around with teams. I mean, unless they, as long as they can kind of drag teams down into the mud a little bit, which is not how Hugh really wants to play long term, but it's how he's having to play this year. You look on the other side of the conference, go from the west to the east. South Carolina, 4th loss of the year last week, 41 the 41-39 to Florida. A tough loss at home. Now things don't get any easier. Now they go on the road to Missouri, a Missouri team that had a nice road win against Kentucky. I think was it Paul and I called that one last week. Yes, we did.
Fake punt. Hey, I was looking good early. Then Kentucky forgot to cover a fake punt, and the game flipped on its
Well, they thought you only played 12 minutes, not 48, much less 60.
And I can't remember who it was, but somebody called Florida over South Carolina.
Oh, it was you. Yes, we know.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
This is true.
You stole 2 last week, or you stole 1. I would say. I don't know about the.
If you listen to last week's podcast, my whole reasoning was Florida's run game, and Graham Mertz goes bananas.
Well, and that's the problem that South Carolina has in this game.
Yeah,
is when you look at it. I mean, it's the second half against Georgia when Georgia said, "Hey, let's let Carson Beck throw and see if he can complete some passes." I mean, he went for 250 in the second half against South Carolina. Will Rogers threw for a half a mile against South Carolina in that game over there in Columbia where they got beat. I think they had a receiver go for like 240 or something like that. Tennessee threw for 230 or some odd yards, and then Graham Mertz goes bananas for 400 yards last week. Now South Carolina with that secondary, after the head coach, this was before he got the cast on, he ripped his defense, I think, but it may have been after the cast. I'm not sure. But
call the pressure, just run the pressure, Hubbard.
I mean, he run in, kind of run his kids over rode the bus over them, if you will. Now they're going to play a Missouri team that offensively is pretty dang salty, pretty good. They can run it a little bit, and they're figuring out how to use those receivers up there that they got, AP, because they've got some pretty good receivers. They're a problem for South Carolina's defense.
To put this in Blount County terms or Maryville terms, Shane Beamer went all Scott West after last week's game. When Scott, broke his hand, I think, in frustration. I think that this is a game, South Carolina can absolutely hang around in, but I just think this could be a tough one for them to win. I just think they're not very good outside of Rattler. And you're staring 4-8 or 5-7, square in the face. You still got to play Kentucky, you still got to play Clemson, you got to play Texas A&M. The next 2 games they play at Missouri, then at Texas A&M.
Oof.
And so, in theory, they lose this week, they could be 2-6. Or they're 2-6 with 4 to play. Now, and they would have Clemson, Kentucky, and Jacksonville State, a very formidable Jacksonville State.
Rich Rod guys.
Tough team.
Yeah. Here's my question, Paul, about Missouri. Is Missouri ready for a moment like this? They're favored. People are talking about them contending in the East. They had a similar situation with LSU when they came to town. They couldn't finish that game off. Is Missouri ready to kind of meet expectations? That last week was a pick'em game. I mean, this one is Missouri supposed to win comfortably. Are they ready for a game like this?
And if you go back, I mean, I watched some of that Mizzou Kentucky game. It was not. I mean, the score ended up pretty lopsided. Mizzou, I mean, you go back and look. I mean, they threw the ball well enough. They didn't run the ball great. Kentucky played them closer than it felt like, if that makes sense. It didn't seem like it ended up being like a 17-point game. And I thought, some of Kentucky's warts obviously showed up there as well. So I'll be interested to see, how does Spencer Rattler respond to? He's not playing poor. He's playing pretty good. And he's not getting a lot of help from the other side of the ball, as his coach let everyone in America know last week. But can he keep up in this game? Because I'm with you, Hubbard. I do think Mizzou has more weapons. But, another thought on this, too, this is the battle of 2 out of the 3 worst SEC towns. Both Columbia's in the bottom 3. So there needs to be some garbage can trophy for this game, the battle of Columbia's.
I'm waiting on the Palmetto State, Paul.
Because we all just want to drive through to Charleston. Nobody wants to stop in Columbia. Nobody cares. Let's all be real honest here.
Stop at Rush's. You stop at Rush's. Fast food place right there in the mall exit.
Paul will be getting his letter from the Chamber of Commerce in Columbia, South Carolina in the coming days.
Now, Columbia, Missouri, I agree. I mean, one of the grossest Hooters you've ever been to. I mean, it's just, ugh.
I remember eating at Shakespeare's Pizza, and that was supposed to be like the spot. And it was like,
I remember getting off of the plane, deathly ill, riding with you and Rob to the.
I remember that.
Place.
Yes, you were
I was so
trying to
sick.
sleep the whole
I couldn't
time.
shoot the game. I couldn't shoot the game. Sarah Mitchell had to shoot the game.
Yes,
poor little Sarah Mitchell out there, and it was like that game where it was like 3.
Yeah, and every
it's like the UT trainers. The UT trainers were giving me Pedialyte and all kinds of stuff.
That was every time out there. It seems miserable. I don't know what it's flat.
It is. If you drive, you pass by 73 dead deer on the way there in Illinois.
Middle of nowhere.
If you fly, it's impossible to get to unless you do what we do.
Whose idea was that? In between Kansas City and St. Louis, we'll just put the university
right in the middle.
It's
like a half a mile difference between one.
Yes.
Right in the middle. It's awful.
So all those Vol fans traveling to Columbia, Missouri, are they playing them this year at Mizzou, or is it at home?
At Mizzou, buddy.
Yeah, if you're looking
9th.
for a game to go to, that's the one.
It'll be a night affair too.
Hey, why not? Just stay in East St. Louis while you're there. Just stay in East St. Louis, drive over. It'll be awesome. What a great
All right. Moving on. Tennessee travels to Tuscaloosa for the third Saturday in October. They won this game for the first time in a long time last year, 52-49. It will not be 52-49 this year, but could be a really competitive football game.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be. I mean, outside of one game for Alabama, really this year. I mean, USF, they only beat by 14 last week against Arkansas. They scraped by after Arkansas played really well. I'm expecting this to be a 4-quarter ball game and Tennessee to be in it till the very end. I think Milroe has done a better job. He's only has 1 turnover in the last 3 games, so he's not really playing as poorly as he did, I think, those first couple of weeks and against Texas. But he's doing a better job of playing within himself the last 3 weeks. I think they're not asking him to do too much. Burton has become a fantastic playmaker for Alabama as well. So they're trying to figure out, or they're starting to figure out who they are offensively. They're not the same team they've been for the last 6-8 years, where they put up.
Here's how matches the jersey. Look at that.
For the last they put up 45 points a game. They're a team where they gotta score 28, 27, 28, 30 points, and their defense do enough to help them win. So not the Alabama of old, but still a very good football team. But definitely, Brent, I think one where Tennessee, should be in this game all 60 minutes, or they have the capability to be in this game until the end.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the line of scrimmage for me in this game. I mean, can Tennessee get home with 4 and pressure Milroe, where they can play some mixed coverages on the back end and try to bait him and confuse him into some stuff, or do they get caught in man-to-man and they get it thrown over their head? A&M chose to play a bunch of man-to-man, and he made them pay in the second half after not being able to make them pay in the first half. Arkansas, I mean, heck, the first touchdown Alabama scored was just a bust. I mean, they just completely busted a coverage, and it was a layup for Jalen Milroe. This is the best deep-throwing quarterback Tennessee's played this year. So can Tennessee cover in the back end? And can they get home and not allow him to have extra time for a receiver to get more vertically downfield? And then conversely, we all assume now, that Tennessee's just going to be able to line it up and run it against everybody, right? After what they did to Texas A&M's defensive front, which was supposed to be the best in the league. This is the best set of linebackers Tennessee's faced, Austin. Can Tennessee's offensive line, can they get those double teams squared up on the linebackers to create those creases in the run game like they have the last couple of weeks? I think that's a challenge, because I don't think this is the best Alabama front. I think they're solid, but their linebackers are really good. Tennessee's going to have to find a way to climb to the second level with that offensive line.
Yeah, and I think ultimately what helps the running game the most is if the passing game can just improve some. It doesn't have to be 350 yards. It just got to be not 100 yards.
It's got to be able to help them stay on schedule. Yeah,
I mean, I just think that will pay huge dividends in this game if Tennessee can throw it a little bit more than they threw it last week in the football game. I just think that this is going to be one of those touch-and-go games where you're going to have to convert several 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7s on both sides. And who does it the best, could determine who wins the football game.
I think, too, and I know you guys have talked about it this week, the penalties have to be a huge concern. I mean,
both teams. Both
yeah,
teams.
yeah, both teams. I mean, Alabama's I think they're like 97th in the country. Tennessee's 119th. But it's not just the pre-snap stuff for me. I mean, Tennessee had a lot of stupid, dumb penalties. I mean, the holding calls. I mean, they've got to play a cleaner ball game away from home, where, frankly, you're already going to give up a couple pre-snaps. You already know, right? You're going to be behind the chains. How fast they want to play, the atmosphere at Alabama. You look back at your history at Georgia last year, at Florida this year. You haven't solved those communication issues. Now, maybe Cooper Mays helps you out there, but he played against Georgia last year. So that's my worry is, can you have a cleaner game and not have 9, 10, 11 penalties? Because if you do, you're not going to beat Alabama. I don't think you're going to go down there and do it. Maybe you could pull it off at home, but not at Alabama.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. And I think the penalties are of greater magnitude this year than they were even last year. I mean, Georgia beat you because Georgia was just better. You could have played a clean football game down there, and I think you probably still lose to Georgia because Georgia was, by far the best team in the country last year. But I think last year you could overcome an offensive hold or an offensive pass interference penalty because you were scoring from 70 yards out all over the place.
Yep.
This is about staying on schedule more for this offense because you have to drive the ball more than you did a year ago. So last year, 1st and 20 was like, okay, well, we got to get 10 more yards. This year, 1st and 20 is like, oh my, 20 yards in 3 plays is a lot harder to do.
Big deal, yeah.
I think it's the penalties are more of a killer this year because of where you are offensively right now. Because I don't think this passing game is suddenly going to just take the top off of it like you had a year ago.
Everyone, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, that's why I think, too, Milton helping them stay on schedule. He can't have one of those runs where he goes 1-9 or 1-8, right? Because now you don't have to hit, your run game's so good, you don't have to hit the 40, 50 yards, but you got to get the 6. You got to go from maybe it was 2nd and 8 and hit the 6-yard hitch or the 7-yard out to make it 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and you can't be stuck in 3rd and 8 all game. That's where I think too the penalties and staying on schedule in the pass game are going to be huge.
Yeah, to put this in golf terms, because we all know I love to do that. This is a long par 4. If Tennessee's passing game doesn't get going, it's like not being able to take your driver on a long par 4. You're having to get 3 wood off the tee, and the hole becomes a lot longer. So making par on it is that much more of a challenge. So I mean.
You just described my golf game. Thanks.
Hubbard, have you ever seen AP's pictures from the Masters? Did you know he played in Augusta?
I heard that he played Augusta.
Did you know he played in Augusta?
I heard that there's some video footage of it, too.
There probably is.
I'm going to send it to Megan. She'll pop it up on next
week.
Please,
yeah.
All right, Paulie, tell us what's all going on at Wyatt Insurance Services.
We're getting geared up. A lot of our clients have 1/1 renewal dates, so that's a big day in the insurance world, and maybe some business owners kind of grumble at that date because that's the day that their insurance renews. But we try and make that a really easy process for our clients, and we get our renewals out as early as possible and tell them what's going on in the market and how it's affecting their premium. So we're also talking to new clients right now for the 1/1 to how do we best serve them and strategically set up their account. So yeah, if you're a 1/1 renewal date for your property and casualty business insurance, we'd love to talk to you at 865-862-3997 or just email me, paul@wyattinsurance.com.
Give Paulie a call today. Get those inside stories on one Rob Lewis when you sign up with Wyatt Insurance Service Group. So let's take a look at the standings. Paulie has distanced himself a little bit now. A 2-game lead. Austin and Brent are tied at 56 and 11, and Paul's out there at 58 and 9. Not that many games this week. Only 5 games to pick from in the conference. Brent and I will pick from 4 of them today. We'll put our Tennessee and Alabama predictions in the picks on Friday. But let's take a look at the 4 conference games we will pick right here. And, I don't know how much change we're going to have here.
Ooh, AP going with the Reverend, baby, going with the Reverend.
Yeah, I thought that y'all would both go with Ole Miss. It's probably the smart pick, but
I don't.
It's a lot more fun when we have differences of opinion, and I just didn't feel like I could differ on. I was not taking South Carolina. I was sure wasn't taking Mississippi State, and I wasn't taking Army. So if I was going out on a limb, it was going to be with the home team, Auburn.
That's not a bad pick. I wouldn't have blamed anybody for taking South Carolina either. Brent mentioned it earlier about, is this when they kind of step up and answer the bell? Because it's one thing to do it once against Kentucky, but to go back-to-back against another team that can really throw the football, I'll be interested in that game. Army at LSU, thank you, Army. But, yeah, that's Jaden Daniels going to throw for 400 yards in the first half or something.
Yeah,
Mississippi State and Arkansas. Nobody thinks that'll be close. You might think.
I think it could be close. I just figure Arkansas. I mean, are they really going to lose 6 in a row?
Well, and here's the thing: what's Will Rogers? Where's he at? What are they going to do there? That's a salty Mississippi State team. They've at times they've been much better at home than they have been on the road. They haven't played very well on the road. That's a desperate Arkansas team finally back at home. I just think that this is a must get for them. I think this is a game where Jefferson runs it more than he normally does. It's kind of just figure a way, just find a way any way you can, because you desperately need to win. Here's where I am on Arkansas and Auburn. I sent Megan so many revised picks on this one. I think I changed my mind like 4 times after I sent her my initial pick. Right. I really don't know where I landed, so I'm landing at Ole Miss, and I'm okay with that. Megan didn't do anything wrong, but I was literally waffling back and forth on all this. I just think Ole Miss scores enough that Auburn can't keep up.
That's right.
It's where I think Ole Miss wins this game. But I'm going to tell you right now, if they're slow out of the gate and that place gets wound up there, to your point, Paul, Lane will do some goofy stuff and will start messing around and taking weird chances and put themselves behind the 8 ball there. So I am not comfortable with the Ole Miss pick. I'm not against it, but I'm not exactly confident that one's going to happen.
No, Hubbard, you're right. If things are tight, late second quarter, it's 4th and 4 at their own 42. That's
42 at the 14.
He'll go for it, and then Auburn only has to go 20 yards, pick up 3 extra points or something. That's the stuff that scares you when you pick Ole Miss, is what lane are you going to get? And I do think he's it seems he's flushed a little bit out of that, but I don't know. One play could just get him back into it and you feel like he's smarter than everybody again.
Yeah, I that is a true pick'em game there. And if South Carolina's secondary had a pulse, I might give them a chance. But I just think their secondary play is so rough right now. When you look at the yards they've given up, it's hard for me to see them stopping Missouri. And I don't know that South Carolina can keep pace scoring wise with Missouri, but particularly on the road. But we'll see.
All right, now let's get to what everybody came to see, which is Paul's pick for Tennessee and Alabama.
Uh-oh.
Ollie, who you going with, pal?
I get a little heat for this. Reluctantly choosing the Tide. I just – if last week was a step in the right direction of the program, Brent, you said it that way. I think that's the exact right way to say it. This would be an even bigger step. You're not a perfect team.
Thank you.
You're going into a very hostile environment that I think their offense is clicking just a little bit more. Their quarterback's playing a little bit better than your quarterback. I think Jalen Wright's going to have another big game, and to do that 2 weeks in a row against these two fronts. And Brent, you mentioned it, the backers at Alabama. I think that's going to be tough. But man, if they do, that's a huge step in the right direction. Doing it at home is one big thing, like they did last year, and all credit needs to go to that team last year. They were tremendous, but doing it on the road is just a totally big different step. And I don't know that Tennessee has the personnel to go down there and do it this year.
I'll say this: it's the first time in a long time that you've gone down there, that this Tennessee team has gone down there, Austin, and it's not about, well, how bad is this going to be?
Or what does it take to pull off a miracle?
Yeah, exactly. And that's not the vibe in this one. This is Alabama can be pedestrian. Tennessee obviously has been. Both defenses are good. It's got a real old school feel to it. Alabama's probably a little more comfortable in that style of game than Tennessee is, but Tennessee took a step in the right direction with that last week. Kicking game, turnovers, crucial penalties. Who's going to make a third down conversion with their legs at the quarterback position? This is that type of game. It's one or two of those type plays that are the difference in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I expect it to be a battle. I don't expect Alabama to win by double digits at all. I think this will be a really good, close, contested ball game. Hey, so most belief for a Tennessee team since 2015, maybe? I was trying to think about that earlier.
I think there's more belief than that game.
No. But since when, though?
I mean, I would say
like former days. You go back that far, or Kiffin's year when they went down there.
Yeah, I mean, I would either go.
They were a nearly two touchdown dog going down there when Kiffin went. I mean,
I would go Phillip. I think 15. I mean, you had two true freshmen out there starting the offensive line.
I forget about that.
I mean,
but they had played well up to that point in 15 too, and you just lost it at Oklahoma.
Probably 2005 or 7 for me.
Yeah. And that's when you knew that's when you expected to beat Alabama at Alabama.
Paulie with the ultimate heel turn takes the Crimson Tide over Tennessee.
I hope I'm wrong.
And Paul, since you asked for it, I thought I'd deliver. Megan, roll the footage.
No way. Please let us see it.
There it is, baby.
Look at that shot. Does it land on the green, AP?
Oh, yeah. I hit it to 10 feet above the hole. It's the Sunday pin on Monday after the tournament. And I didn't walk down to Ray's Creek to look at it from that side, and I didn't realize how downhill it was. And I ran it like 8 feet by. Luckily,
you can hear the cheers. You can hear the claps if you're quiet. Do you hear them?
We really have no idea where the ball landed. We're just going to assume it was 10.
Now, I've got picture evidence of where.
We don't need any more pictures.
My worst Augusta experience is my only near Augusta experience. I asked to go on a Sunday to Augusta, and it would have been my first time to go. And then something happened, and at the last minute, I just had to bail. We couldn't make it work with kids and everything. And it was the Sunday that Tiger won his last Masters.
Oh, Paulie.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. So still looking to if anybody wants to take me this year, maybe it's another memorable year. My phone number, my email address. Just let me know.
Somebody offered Paul tickets to the game Saturday, and then he'll bail on it right before to see if he can recreate the same type mojo for the Vols.
Hey, I actually don't mind Tuscaloosa.
Tuscaloosa since 2003. Paul was in college at the time, maybe even high school. Actually, I think it was high school. He is Paul Fortenberry and Brent Hubbs, who's much older than Paul and I. I'm Austin Price. The Ball with the Beast podcast. We'll be back next week, presented by our good friends at Wyatt Insurance Services.